At this point, I plucked up the courage to phone my girlfriend, who'd opted not to stand on another rainy hill for another night on her week's holiday with me, and tell her that she really should come down. And after a rather anxious few seconds, when she thought that perhaps something nasty had happened to me and that I was phoning from hospital or some such, she kind of woke up and came over as soon as she could. So it took a little while for her to drive over, but when she did, I packed up the camera equipment on the hill and walked down to meet her. We then, with the dog, went down the Drovers Road into the corner of Eastfield, walked up the tram line from the bottom there to the first part of the circle, where Gary and Paula were already sitting, contemplating and examining the circle.
And what was the time then?
The time was now approaching 5 o'clock in the morning, by the time I first made the circle. Okay, well, the atmosphere was literally electric. It was tingly, it was exciting. I felt that, my girlfriend Anne felt it very intensely. Gary felt the very same. My dog acts very strangely as well. Dog is normally a carnivore. It doesn't normally go and eat corn. My dog went into the circle, and the first thing it did was start grazing the corn. He was literally eating all the parts of the corn. And he immediately walked out of the circle and was sick twice. And he seemed very excited though. He'd been very excited the night before in that area, in a way that he hadn't been anywhere else that whole week. And that was the deciding factor to me that I wasn't wasting my time that night, and that I should really tough it out one night more, and that the weather hopefully wouldn't intervene. Inside the circle, the lays changed sometimes from circle to circle. That is, the direction and intricacy changed occasionally. The circle I paid particular attention to had a relatively simple clockwise lay, and had a central swirled area which had no indication of any indentation, such as sighting poles or anything that I would expect to use to be able to survey this kind of formation. And really only from being in the circle can you grasp how difficult a task it would be to make this under any circumstances, especially so in the dark. Just working with a camera in the dark is befuddling. Finding switches where you know there are switches, finding places to plug in leads where you know they go, even by touch, can be difficult. To be able to sit or stand in a field such as that in absolute pitch darkness and survey a site without using any form of light, and then to make such a large formation in a known short period of time, I would consider to be impossible for a human to do. Okay, in the evening surveillance, there are time gaps. That's largely down to mine and Gary's fault for talking too much. But it's almost as much a social event as a piece of research, and I think a balance has to be struck. And I think, bizarrely enough, I think that if I'd paid more attention at the time, the circle would be less likely to occur. By the same token that in '91, the consciousness I interacted with made the circle to show that it could dance around me. I believe it felt safe to make this formation at that time because it felt I wasn't paying attention. But I also wasn't paying attention to the fact there were cameras rolling in my car, and I don't think it was aware of that. There were gaps in the surveillance, unfortunately, as a result of this. The last sweep that Gary and I made was at 1:35, and the last digital still photograph we took was at 1:23 in the morning. The flash event occurred at approximately 3:13 in the morning, and the first visibility we had on CCTV tape of the circle was 7 minutes after that point.
we entered this formation for the first time a few days ago, it was awe-inspiring, beautiful. I was overwhelmed by many things. And the first most of those was the actual size of the formation. And as we came in from the south, you couldn't even see half or two-thirds of the formation as it went down the hill. As I stood in the largest circle in the center, I was overwhelmed again by the amount of flattened crop. And it dawned on me that this is more flattened crop than any formation that I've been into in the last 7 summers visiting Wiltshire. The overall length of it was just over 1,000 feet, which is pretty large, but there have been some longer. And the width was about 520 feet or so. And again, there have been some larger than that. But the sheer number of circles and the amount of flattened crop is what impressed me the most. So I went about doing some rough measurements to get an idea of how much of the crop was flattened. And it turns out that, by my estimation, approximately 97,000 square feet was flattened just in the 60 largest of the 90 circles involved. And that came out to about nearly 2¼ acres of flattened crop. And for comparison size, up to this point, July 16th, I know of approximately 31 or 32 formations here in England. And about 1/4 of those would neatly fit inside of the largest circle in this formation down here. So next to the formation 6 years ago on the hill behind us here on Windmill Hill, this to me is by far the largest and the most flattened crop of any that I've seen. Well, if it was done by people in some sort of way, it must have taken quite a team or else taken quite a while. One of those two things, because there are over 90 circles in the formation itself and an additional 60 circles outside the formation. Many crop circle researchers call those grape shots. So over 150 circles were produced, and I told you about the acreage that was flattened. And to do it with precision is amazing. I'm curious, and I'm asking to find out, how long would it take a harvester to harvest 2¼ acres of crop, much less individual people going out and flattening the crop? There is something miraculous and magical going on here, and that I am always finding there is more that I do not know, and I think that this is something that can't be explained, that cannot be exactly duplicated by people. This is something multidimensional occurring, and we don't have all the answers. And it is magical to be around something like this and to witness and to be in the presence of it.